Did you grow up with any siblings?
Not for the first like 11 years. So my mother and father. So my mother was 22 years old when I was born, and my father was 47. Right, so he was like an old school
Wow.
dude who's my. So this is a crazy story. My grandmother, who was wild, rest in peace, Yaya. Right, she was nuts, and she used to dress in like the leopard print outfits with the bleach blonde hair and walk around with the high heels, leopard print leather. On some just nut job shit. And she was like she was an alcoholic. She liked to drink. She'd be in the bars, and she was just a knock around girl from the time, right? And she was a waitress in a bar, like a bartender, waitress, server in a bar that my father had a piece of with his partner at the time, this dude Spike. Right, so they had this bar, and my grandmother was the bartender there. So as my mother became of age, 21, whatever, and popped up in the bar, and she was young and looked good or whatever, my father would be like, "Who's that?" You know what I mean? Like, well, who's that young whatever? And my grandmother was like, "Yeah, it's my daughter," and she was cool with it. She was like, because she knew my dad, and my dad was cool to her or whatever. She's like, "Yeah, go ahead, you got my blessing," like that type of shit. And it was on some, my mother was probably infatuated by that lifestyle, and my father had connections and this and that, and they got together, and I probably wasn't planned, and then my father they broke up when I was like 1 or 2, and then but my father would pick me up on the weekends, and then my mother got there's a couple of different dudes coming through, you know what I mean? So like boyfriends, my mother would have different boyfriends and stuff, and I would get like bullied and harassed in the neighborhood, like like, oh yeah, Chris got 6 fathers, like that type of shit, and you know what I mean? Like, and I would fight. I'd be like, wow, what the fuck did you say? And we'd do our little 6-year-old, 7-year-old fight, roll around in the fucking grass, we'd put each other in headlocks. But yeah, and then later on, she got married and had my brother, my half brother, who I don't consider my half brother because he was a baby and I'm 11 years old in the house, and that's my little brother, and I basically raised him as a, kind of the man of the house because she split with that dude eventually, my brother's father, you know. So and then we got kind of raised in different eras, like a decade different era. So I'm 11 years older than my little brother, and because I ended up rebellious and crazy and a little street and this and that. My I got kicked out of the house when I was like 16, and then my brother at that point is like 5, 6 years old, whatever. He was raised like really under the thumb and sheltered, and my mother like really instilled, like, join the military, do this, do that, like got him, like, try to get him on the straight and narrow because she didn't want to deal with what she dealt with me, with him, a second time. She made mistakes. She was young with me, and I made a lot of mistakes. I was crazy. So we forgive each other now, and we're good, me and my mom, because now my mom is grandma to my daughter, and we're cool now, because she's good with my granddaughter. But it was crazy. So I kind of raised my brother. My mother would work 2, 3 jobs, and I'd be in the house babysitting my brother, but also watching horror movies with him and stuff, and then he rat me out to my mother, like, oh, like, what'd you do with your older brother? And he would, he'd be 4 years old. He showed me the severed head, and I would tell him, look, Nick, the severed head. It would be like a werewolf movie where the werewolf cut the guy's head off. Like I was a teenager and I was nuts. So, I would get in trouble for that shit. Like, what are you doing? And I had my friends over. My friends would be ringing the bell. My teenage 14, 15-year-old friends. Like, yo, come outside. We're going to go do this, do that. We're going to go play ball. And I'm like, nah, I'm watching my little brother. He's too little. I can't bring him out. Come up. So my mother would be working a night job or something, and I have my fucking goon friends in the house, like bad kids. And my little brother, I put him in the room, watch Disney or whatever, watch the fucking Little Mermaid or whatever. And we're making jerky boys crank phone calls on my mother's phone and doing crazy shit while my brother's in the other room watching movies. So like we got that shit, that camaraderie. And then later, as we got older, my brother actually went to the military and became like Army, and he graduated St. John's program, military program, and now he's a police officer in Baltimore. So wow, we took 2 different paths. Where I was always, raised like fuck police, but my brothers ended up being a good cop. You know, like he's not like a ball breaker cop. He's like, he just wants to do his shift, come home to his family, that type of thing. And
You said that you got kicked out at 16. Why did you get kicked out of your mom's house?
my mother just couldn't deal with me anymore. You know, like I was, as I alluded to before, I came up with a lot of like bullies and just environment stuff, old New York type shit. So I was always out playing sports, doing whatever, trying to be. It's like the Boys in the Hood scenario where you saw that movie and the older goons would come through, steal your football, do whatever. So we had that real bully, ball breaking motherfuckers in the neighborhood. Some older psychopath kid with hair under his arms already, like a big fucking gorilla, would come down the street, some Italian goon, right? Stinky motherfucker, right? And he would like hold you down and beat the shit out of you for no reason, like on some wild, just like whatever, just because he could. Walk down the street, oh, there goes Charlie Galena, like, and everybody would be afraid, and I would be like on some, I was weird. I would be like, why? Like I didn't understand why you're doing that. So, and I knew it was wrong, and I was one of these kids that I was on some stand up for the rest of. I was very protective over my friends because I was like a team player. I always been, and I still am, and you know my friends will tell you, Necro, I'm very protective over my friends. So I would sacrifice. I would be the martyr. I'd be the one to punch that guy in his face, and it would do nothing because I was 6 or 7 or 8, and I punched this guy in his face, and you know, then he would just get on top of me and beat the shit out of me. So it was, but I still punched him in his fucking face. You know what I mean? So people around would be like, "Oh, Chris is crazy," but really, I'm not that crazy. I was just standing up for you, and you're a fucking pussy because you didn't do it. That's how I thought in my head. You know, I'm just like, don't. There was these dead end. We lived on a dead end block, and there'd be like this opening, uh, and there was train tracks down there, and all like the older, supposedly bad kids, thug kids, would hang out there, smoke weed, do whatever the fuck they're doing. They would do bad shit too. They would like kill cats and like kill animals and they were fucked up kids. And we had a shortcut. If we walked through the opening in the dead end, we could get to the candy store. We could get to the park quicker than to go around the other way down, you know, and walk blocks and blocks to go all the way around. So going through the opening was a shortcut, but it was like you got to pay the Billy fucking ogre Billy goat toll. There's ogres there. You have to go there and go through those motherfuckers who are there, and maybe they'd like, oh, you got to take your hits, you got to take your punches. They'd line you up on the fence, punch you, rob. You know, oh, where you going to candy store? What do you got? How much money you got on you? You know, like, that type of shit. So my friends would be like, "Yo, no, we can't go through there right now. Those kids are there." You know, and they were down with this crew. I'm not gonna mention the name of the crew that they were in, but yeah, they're down with like a certain crew in the neighborhood, like graffiti crew that was like, you know, the tough kids or whatever. So I would be like, nah, fuck that. You can't show them that they're scared, that we're scared, because then we're always gonna have to go the long way. We got to go and just go through and whatever we got to do. We got 7 or 8 of us or 9 of us, and there's maybe only 3 of those kids over there. So then we fight. I was like, we fight, but I was raised on like movies too, so I was like, fuck it, let's fight. I'm watching movies like Platoon. So, you know, as a young kid, we'll get into that too. So I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. I'm on some like, you know, like, let's stand up to these bullies. And my father always taught me that too. Like, punch a bully in his face. Don't let anybody put their hands on you. My mother was like that too. At a very young age, I would cry to my mother like any little kid. Like, oh, this guy's bothering me. Blah, blah, blah. And then she was like, well, you know, she might go have a talk with the kid's mother. And if the kid's mother was like, boys will be boys, they've done that. They're like, oh, yeah, who cares? Boys will be boys. And my mother would be like, oh, yeah, boys will be boys? Chris, come here. Next time his mother's a douchebag too. Next time the kid puts his hands on you, punch him in his fucking face. And then when I got that okay from my mother, I was like, oh, a word? I'm not going to get in trouble? So, you know, I'm a mama's boy. My mother was, you know, a single mom. What she said went at that time. I wasn't afraid. I was just afraid to get in trouble for my mother for doing it. So I don't want to be grounded and beat. My mother would beat the shit out of me too. So I wasn't trying to get hit with the wooden spoon or the fucking metal wire hanger, which would happen. So I went and did it, and you know, punch a kid in his face. And eventually it became like that over and over, and I wasn't scared. And I would tell them, like, yo, we got 7 of us. Let's go. Like, you know, I know that they're bigger and they're stronger and they're crazy, but let's get crazy. Let's go down there with a fucking wiffle ball bats or whatever the fuck we had. And they were like, nah. And then I would go by myself, bro. I would go. I'd be like, you know what? Let me show these fucking kids. 8 years old, 7 years old. I would go through the opening, and these kids would be looking at me like, yo, this kid's got balls. And they would do their little thing. I remember one specific time, the guy's name was Joe, right? This is just one specific time, and he was a kind of a psycho. He was drinking, like, drinking, you know, I don't know what the fuck. He was drinking, like, hard liquor in that area. It was like a liquor bottle. And he was, like, 16. And he was like, oh, yeah, we got to play the punching game where you punch me, I punch you, and you, like, some bullshit. And I'm like, you know, in order to pass through. So I was like, all right, fine. And he goes, okay, you punch me in my arm, and I'll punch you in your arm, and like some stupid shit. So I was like, all right, cool. So he puts his arm out for me. He goes, you could go first, little motherfucker, right, or whatever. So he puts his arm like that, and I punched him dead in his face. I didn't punch him in his arm. I hit him as hard as I could in his face. And all his friends were like, oh, shit, that little motherfucker punched you dead in your face. And then, you know, then the guy beat me up. So, but I went to the store, beat up. I got my shit, and I came back. And on the way back, I guess they might have talked or whatever they did. And on the way back, he was like, he was cool with me. He was like, oh, whatever, go ahead, go through. So it was like it was weird. And then eventually, they would send my friends would send me to the store. Oh, Chris is cool with them. They don't fuck with him. And little did they know they were fucking with me here and there. But I was doing wild shit. It was embedded in me to like not take any shit at an early age, and that carried through to hip hop and doing shows and making my imprint, you know, in my path and whatever I did. So I kind of like the feeling of oh yeah, you know, like he stood up for himself. He's got balls. He's got, you know, and then like later on, like my favorite movies would be shit like Braveheart, where, you know, 300, a small group of strong brothers that stood up against the fucking resistance, and, you know, stood up against a tyranny, let's say, or much more people, like gladiatorium type shit. So I'm into all that. My father would call my cousin Johnny, who's a little older than me, later on when I was 16, 17, 18, whatever. And he'd call him up. He'd be like, because my father wasn't around. He was playing poker. He's knocking around guys, you know, he's knocking around with like connected dudes and doing his thing. And he'd be like, yo, cousin Johnny, you got to look out for my son, Christopher. You know, he's getting into all sorts of trouble. Like, what's the problem? What's going on? You're not looking out for him? What are we doing? And he would be like, Uncle Eugene, Chris is different. He should have been born in gladiatorium ages. He wants to be a gladiator. Like, you know, like on some, he would tell my father, like, oh, and my father would be like, yeah, he's a little battler. He's a battler. My father would say shit like the turlet bowl and put the pedal to the metal. He talked like old school shit. And he's like, yeah, my son's a battler. And he'd just be proud. He'd be like, oh, cool, because he was a battler. So, but he wouldn't really get involved in like really, he'll say something, look before you leap, and talk to me in like cliches and like, oh the bullies, yeah, punch them in the face. You know, like he was in and out with like his wisdoms and this and that, and tell me stuff, and I would remember it. And you know, but anything that my father said, I hung on to because it was my dad, and I yearned to be with him. You know, to have that father-son relationship more. But he would a lot of times he would pass me on to the guys in the poker spot, and they would put like, it was very Bronx Tale. They would put $5, hey, oh, Eugene's son, and give me money, and I'd come home to my mother, and she'd find the knot of money, and oh, you're bringing them to the fucking card game, you know, like on the weekend he's supposed to be staying with you, and you got him at the card game, you know, so shit like that.